Hey everybody, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and that is something that we believe is critically important, and we want everyone watching to know, first and foremost, no matter what type of mental health issues you may be dealing with or somebody that you know and love may be dealing with, you are not alone. Whether it is depression, anxiety, addiction, etc., it is nearly universal that somebody is themselves or knows somebody that is struggling with this, and it is very sad that it's not something that more people talk about openly, but we've put together a very special show for you guys today of just the incredible people that we've had on the show that have talked openly about some of their own struggles. So hopefully in watching this, you will see that not only can it be treated, but it's something that you can get to the other side of and be stronger for. So without further ado, check out the show. Within this context, so obviously seek help is first and foremost, but beyond that, what does that rebuilding process look like for somebody who's trapped in depression and suicidal thoughts?
I've been there a lot in my life, especially before my car accident, my teenage years. Then the first woman I ever loved, we had a big breakup, and that breakup sent me down into depression and suicidal planning. And it's tough to dispense advice to people other than get help. And I'll share why. Because that time in my life, I had so many people coming up to me, you know, my friends would come into my dorm room, and, Brendan, let's go do something. And the hope is lost. And what people, I think, make the mistake of trying to do is hype people up. Everything's gonna be okay, you're gonna be great. And what people need who are suicidal is serious psychological intervention. They need to seek support and help. And outside of that, when they do get that support, the first thing a great therapist is going to do, outside of the emotional reflection work of why are you here and what has caused this sort of pattern for you, they're going to get you starting to get some momentum. The most important thing is when you are super down, outside of finding that emotional reasoning for where you are, is to start getting momentum. Because with momentum comes hope. With momentum comes motivation. With momentum comes, that feeling that there's a reason for tomorrow. And so it's as simple as just saying, okay, what are 3 things I'm gonna do today? And I don't mean that like a lot of personal development guys would say, like, what are your 3 big goals for the day? Arr! I'm like, dude, sometimes that first goal is, I'm gonna shower today. I'm really gonna shower today. I'm gonna walk to the library. I'm gonna come home. And that's all they got. Like literally, that's all they got. And you gotta honor that struggle when you're in that place. Like know that where you're at, it is okay that you're there, and now you're gonna need help, and now you're gonna have to set up some daily practices just every day, win a little bit. Not like win your dreams, not like crush through goals, not like be a badass, not like, no, just momentum, man. You know, most of the guys I've dealt with in that position who were suicidal, outside of their therapeutic work, I said, the most important thing you can do is win the morning. Just win the morning, man. I think that's true for all of us, even high performers. Like if I don't have my morning routine game, I feel, out of sorts. So I think it's true for everybody. You gotta own your morning, you gotta win it, because that starts and sets up everything else. I know you believe that as well. Like people need that discipline, those routines that will help the rest of their day go better. And I don't wanna ever be flippant with the advice to people who are dealing with that situation outside of get some help, get some momentum, and be okay if that momentum is really small, because it will build. Trust that that momentum builds, and trust that those gloomy and bad, dark days, trust that those are going to be there. They'll get less and less and less as you learn how to cope, but they're gonna be there. And so when they're there, it's one of outside of teaching people to bring the joy in my life, I teach people to honor the struggle. Honor the difficulty. When we honor the struggle instead of hate the struggle, we can really achieve extraordinary things because our mindset's in the right place. As soon as you honor the struggle, you accept that, oh, of course, there should be struggle here. I should honor this process. When you go to the gym to work out, you honor that this is gonna be hard, and honor that process of getting better. And the more that you bring honor to it, the more your psyche builds with strength, and you get a little bit of that esteem back because you see yourself engaging something versus avoiding it and running away. You see yourself connecting with something and giving it reverence. You're like I have reverence for the difficulties of life. They may be better. So I don't want a friction-free life. I'm not interested in it. You know, I like to say sometimes that, you know, the journey to greatness begins the moment that our, you know, deep desires for comfort and ease are overpowered by our desires to connect and contribute.
Let's talk about mental health then. It features pretty prominently in your book and certainly in what you've had to go through. And by the way, your honesty and vulnerability in the book are amazing, and I think that
It was hard.
I can only imagine, and for anybody that hasn't read the book, they really don't understand what we're talking about. You were really honest. Like, you did not try to paint yourself as like, hey, I'm a stud, look at me. Like, it was such a warts and all biography. Absolutely loved that part of it. Amazing, and I've got to imagine people reach out to you routinely to say that thank you for that, and it's...
Yeah, I didn't know how people were going to react to it. I mean, I had all these people that followed me from Dancing with the Stars that loved me, and when the book hit the shelves, I was terrified. I was like, all these people are going to see a side of me that they have not seen, and they're going to hate me. And it has been a positive response because I was very open and honest.
That's incredible. So I can imagine the kind of audience that you would build off of Dancing with the Stars, sort of very much like sort of right down the middle, and some of the like behaviors that you had when you were angry were like, it's sort of the aggressive dickhead, you know what I mean? So for you to like put it out there and be like, let me walk you through what I was thinking so that you understand, like, I'm not justifying this, I'm just telling you it's real.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, like, it was so defenseless, and which made me feel super connected to you. And to walk through that, but then it got me thinking, like, what is that rebuilding process? So you've helped us see your journey, but I was like, what would he say? Like, if somebody came up to that was in this situation, what would he do? If it's a soldier, what would he do if somebody's depressed but they're not a soldier? Like, having gone through it and having been so real, open, and honest about what that process looks like, how do we, and give it to me in two ways, how do we systematically address the problem, and we'll just say of veterans going through it, and then on sort of one-offs on a one-to-one, what does that look like?
Well, I think what needs to happen, I think that we've come a long way with mental health, but we have a long way to go. And what needs to happen is...
Where would you say, how far have we come? When you say we've come a long way.
Well, we acknowledge it.
Okay.
We acknowledge it.
And we didn't used to, which I would agree
No,
with.
I mean, because I look at veterans in the past. It was, you know, I think in World War II it was called shell shock. It was all these different things, but it was not acknowledged in the way that it is now. But I think it needs to be talked about more. Okay. I think the more things are talked about, the more comfortable we are, and the more we can understand them. When I woke up one morning and saw that in a tweet that Prince Harry came out talking about his depression, it made me really happy. Because I've been places and someone has said, well, you lost an arm and a leg, so you had a right to be depressed, and I stopped him. I was like, depression is real. You don't even have to go through something traumatic. Some are caused by, you know, something traumatic. Some can be a chemical imbalance in the brain. And I feel like if you had heart problems and saw a cardiologist, well, everyone would be concerned about you, would know you're doing better, and it would be open and honest with the crew, anybody you work with.
Not weird.
But the most complicated organ in your body, if you have a problem with it, suddenly we don't want to talk about that? No, and you can get over it. And that's what people need to realize. You can be cured, you can get past it. That's what we need to realize. You know, the reason I did it is because when I was in my depression, I thought I was alone. I didn't open up to anybody. So I thought someone's going to read this and it's going to help them. So I just, as nervous as I was about the book, I kept thinking that one person is going to read it. Well, now it's open up this dialogue, and I'll go and I'll speak and we'll do Q&A, and people want to talk about it. I gave a speech in Florida, and it was an older crowd. It was just, like I was going to say, they were old, and I speak what's on my heart. And I gave my speech, and as I was closing, I kind of mentioned some depression. Because I was coming out of the winter months, and it hit me again this past winter, and I went and saw the doctor, and so it was on my mind, and it came up. And as I was saying, I thought, this generation of people probably aren't connecting to what I'm saying. When I walked off the stage, and they lined up, the amount of people that thanked me for talking about mental health. And here I was, I thought they didn't want to hear. I thought I was stepping out of line. No, it needs to be talked about because it's not just this generation. It's people are realizing more and more that it's an issue.
Right.
And the more we talk about it, the easier it is for people to be honest with themselves and get the help they need.
You went through a decade of depression where you were oriented an entirely different way. How did you find your way out of that?
I was 24. I remember the day my brain broke. I remember the day I started depression, and I would lay in my bed and just want to die. I didn't want to exist. I wanted an anesthesiologist to come and give me a shot so like my soul would just. And at the time I was in a belief system where there was an afterlife. And so that wasn't possible. You couldn't be gone. You were around forever, no matter what you did. And in fact, if you took your life, you're not behaving in a way that this belief system, rewards you. And so I was trapped in existence. And it was the worst feeling in the entire world because I had no out. But not only that, I had kids. And so I had to, I felt responsible for being a father. And so I was building Braintree, and I had challenges at home with my significant other, and I had kids who weren't sleeping. I wasn't sleeping myself, working 24/7, having companies break, and like all the pressure, and it just drove me into the ground to a point I was just delirious. I mean, I was broke, and so I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro at the tail end of the situation. And I got sick. I got the stomach virus, and like 3 or 4 days in, I had the virus for a couple of days. Plus, I was sick with altitude sickness, and I just felt terrible, like the worst I've ever felt. And we got to base camp, and we were at 15,000 something, and I had to make a decision where I was going to climb to the top the next morning. And I thought, let's do it. Like I'm not going to back down from this, and so I did it. And that 4 hours to the summit changed my life, where the mountain became my problem, and it became a representation of my life. And I started listening to Eminem, my favorite artist, and his defiance against problems. Anyways, I made it to the top, and I just broke down and cried. And it was like, the mountain was my depression. It was my marriage. It was my belief system. And I went home and I was changed. I sold my company shortly after Braintree. I got a divorce. I left my religion. And I was back at my 21-year-old age, and I said, who am I? Like how do I rewrite myself from scratch? What do I care about? What matters? What exists? What's true? What's not true? All of it.
How did you rebuild yourself? Like, what is that process of answering those questions?
Everything I'm doing now is the answer. So the Mormonism, it still is the best story I've ever heard anyone tell. It's like if you obey these rules, you get an unbelievably awesome afterlife. It's just like it's the best you could ever imagine and more. In fact, we can't even imagine it. It's so awesome, as we're told. And all you have to do is obey the rules. It's like super clean. I get that. And when that was taken away from me, it's like, well, okay, so if there's not an afterlife, or is there an afterlife, I don't know, what do I do? And that's why Infinite Games is the only thing that makes sense to me. Is I grew up with this idea that I could continue to play games forever. I want to play games forever.